Have you heard of the Kumite?
Did you say Kumite?
Uh-huh, the Kumite.
There's one game out there that was a big game back when I was younger. It went away for a very long time, but this year it is back. That's EA College Football.
Me being the sports junkie that I am, I can appreciate this. It's been 10 years since the last version came out, 2014. The powers that be, now that there are NLI or NIL, name, image, and likeness, college players are getting paid now. They can have endorsements. That was a big thing that unraveled and put it in to such games like EA Sports College Football, because EA Sports and any other gaming console were making tons of money off the name, image, and likeness. Not really name, because you couldn't use the name back then in college sports, but they said, you know what, we're not going to make this anymore because these kids, they're not getting paid.
Yeah, they wanted to get paid.
Yeah, and to an extent, I don't blame them. This is another subject, but yeah. It came back out recently. I mean, within the week, it's taken off like they knew it would. And my stepson, I asked about it this morning. Said, hey, you going to get that game? He said, man, I can't. I don't have $100. And it blew my mind right off the bat. I was like, $100? Holy shit. And of course, me being.
Is it $100 for the regular edition, or is that for the premium edition? Because most games out there, the regular edition is like $69, but then there's going to be a premium deluxe edition of that same game with a few extra features, and EA is notorious for this. And then that version is like over $100 usually.
Okay. That might have been what he was talking about, but you got to remember, I'm a virgin. I'm not really a virgin when it comes to gaming now. I am now. Let me set the record straight. I was a gamer when I was a kid. We grew up in the age Atari, then Nintendo, and you can list all of them since then. Never lost interest. You know, we've had this conversation. I never lost interest. Now, when you start being an adult, things take over, and some people just didn't pursue. The passion wasn't quite what it used to be. I envy those people, like you, for instance, because you still play, and may not be college football, but there are a lot of games that you enjoy. It is part of your you time, if you will. I need to get back into that. I'm interested. There's a lot of things that I miss from my youth, some of those games. And of course, the sports side of it, yes, college football was a big player of mine because I do like college athletics better than I do pros now, but they're kind of the same thing now with people getting paid and shit. But I don't know. I just always thought the fan involvement, being part of a university, you know, there was a lot of pride. There's a lot of cool things about the college game that I've always enjoyed better than professional ranks. But yeah, it just came back out. So far, everyone loves it. There are glitches that I saw on TikTok. There's glitches in this game, just like any other game. And people exploit it. There's always one play that's like unstoppable, which that's been a thing since day one. And any console, there was always a glitch that you could find, and then you couldn't do anything about it. You just couldn't tackle a guy because he was Bo Jackson in Tecmo Bo. You couldn't tackle the asshole because he was so much faster than everybody. That was a glitch. I don't think they did that on purpose, even though Bo Jackson was a badass. It made it unfair. So every time we'd play when we were kids, like, no, asshole, you can't be the Raiders. They got Bo Jackson. It's an instant victory. You can't tackle the guy. But yeah, gaming is definitely advanced, and it blows my mind.
Well, yeah, because nowadays, you know, if a game comes out with a glitch, like back when we were young with Tecmo Bo, you know, if Bo Jackson was way OP at a legendary level, yeah, where 30 years later, people are still like, damn, Bo Jackson was unstoppable.
Yeah,
I mean, that was it. Once the game's out, the game's out. But nowadays, you know, we have patches, we have updates and whatnot. Like if Tecmo Bo had come out today, they would have eventually nerfed Bo Jackson, made him more of a regular player.
Right.
But It's almost a good thing that they didn't, because he wouldn't be the legend that he is today.
Yeah, Tecmo Bo is what put him on the map.
Yeah, it was just Tecmo Bo. Nothing that he actually did in real life.
What I touched on before, man, we talked about this earlier off air. The gaming system blows my mind now because you can, and I'm way behind on this, but matter of fact, it's just, by the way, I'm way behind. Well, let me get that sentence out correctly this time. I've kind of kept a side eye looking at it from a distance. You know, my stepson's always had a console. My son, my blood son, has a console. They just happen to be two different ones. Can you play against someone online with two different consoles?
Yes, you can.
He has an Xbox.
That's actually a more recent thing. There was a time in the PS3, Xbox 360, Nintendo
you had to stay
Wii
within
era.
that.
Technology was always there. It's just that the different companies didn't want to do it because they wanted everyone to get their version.
Console. Yeah.
Yeah, but nowadays, you know, I think, well, for one thing, the PlayStation and Xbox back then, I mean, they were fiercely competitive.
Mm-hmm.
But since the PlayStation 4 era, I mean, PlayStation is clearly the dominant console. So now it's not a big deal. I mean, pretty much most games out there now, it doesn't even matter what console you have.
You can play online against each other.
Yes.
Okay. Now, you said it's dominant. I would agree. I see a lot more people with Sony PlayStations. My biological son has an Xbox.
I prefer PlayStation. I had a Xbox 360 back in the day, and there's nothing wrong with Xbox. It's just that my hands are more adjusted to the PlayStation controller.
Weird controller the Xbox has. It's big and meaty, and I get it.
Big and meaty. Probably not the words I would have used.
No, but it was there was girth to it. It was huge.
Girth.
Yeah. I remember having, I had an Xbox at one time. So it was like the original Xbox though. So that's how long it's been. But going back to my point about playing online, biggest genius thing ever was connecting souls that you don't even know across the world, playing a game that you love, talking shit, whatever you want to do, or playing a first-person shooter game, having a team together of people you don't know. Man, it's amazing to me that you can do these things. It's not a group, it's not a room full of peers that you did back in the day when you had a tournament of some sort. You'd have 10 sweaty boys lined up in your room. It smells like feet in there, and y'all are sat in there all day Saturday because y'all had a tournament of some sort. Now you can just do this shit online. You don't even have to interact with people anymore. I mean, it is what it is. And then I work with a guy who's a major gamer who just won $750,000 coming in second place at a tournament that was held in London. I think it was I'm not sure if it was Apex. I can't remember the game that he was playing, but it is a first person shooter. And it was him and two other guys that were on a team. And that's big time. If you can make money like that, of course, he still works with me. Granted, some people would take $750,000 and go, you know what? I might can stretch this out. He decided to keep working, have some income, and then take that money and do what he wants to with it over a long period of time. Who knows? Those things exist.
Yeah, but here's a thing, because a lot of people our age, in our mid to late 40s, we all look at this and we all think, yeah, man, I wish, we see the money that these pro gamers are making and what they're making on these tournaments. Like, man, I wish I had played more video games. Well, here's the thing. I never stopped playing video games. I play Street Fighter all the time.
I know, you whipped my ass last week several times.
And I didn't even try. And
that sucks. I was just,
The difference between me and a professional Street Fighter player is equal to the difference between me and a professional football player. Okay. That is a whole other level that these guys are on. And no, you can't say, well, if I had played more games. No, they would still kick your ass.
I wonder if it's because they have the time to put in it, or is it they just wired different where they can just dominate?
There's a talent. I mean, there's a extra level of hand-eye coordination involved.
Yeah.
And it's something that I know I don't have.
That's what my coworker was telling me, the exact same thing. The hand-eye coordination on these first-person shooter games, the dominant ones, are ridiculous. The way you can just change weapons, reload a weapon, fire off a shot with great accuracy in a split second.
Yeah, they do it so much faster than any of us would ever be able to do
Like,
it.
you know what your bag consists of automatically. I know these, and then I'm maybe spitballing here, but you open up your inventory of weapons. You know exactly where it is. You can grab it real quick and you can use it in that specific scenario that fast. And then reholster it, get you another gun because you're on the run. You're moving constantly. It's intense. And I don't know if I'm equipped to handle first person, first of all. I've seen, this goes back a little bit when Call of Duty had the D-Day, you know, the opening scenes of D-Day when you're just rushing the banks of Normandy, France, and the boat opens up, and then it's like Saving Private Ryan, that first 20-minute scene where the boat opens up and you're, you know, chest high in water, and there's bullets flying. People are getting their heads blown off next to you. Dude, that was a intense scene in the movie, and the game recreated it just the same. And I'm like, holy shit. And you got headphones on, and you hear bullets whiz by your ass.
Games are super intense like that. And I know exactly what you mean. That scene in Save It Private Ryan is epic scene in film.
Yeah.
And when you're actually doing it in a game, it's even more intense. Another thing similar to that, I don't know if you've ever heard of a game called The Last of Us.
No, but it's
Okay.
a great title because I'm intrigued already.
Okay, well, it's a game, but they also did a TV series called The Last of Us. And if you haven't seen it, you should check that out. Now, I don't want to spoil it, but
No, you're good.
okay, at the last episode of the TV series, well, the whole thing is basically it's a zombie apocalypse game. It's a little bit different because it's a fungal outbreak instead of viral. And basically you have this little girl, and she is immune to the virus. And you're trying to get her, you're going through like the zombies, you're going through bandits because society's broken down and it's kind of every man for
social
themselves.
structure is just gone to shit.
So there are people out to try to rob you and kill you. And what's left of the federal government, they're still out there and they're trying to keep law and order, and they're pretty much killing anyone who's trying to go out after curfew and all that. And you're dealing with all of that. You get to the final place, your destination, where you're trying to get this little girl. And over the course of the game, you're actually developing a relationship with her, you know, almost as a father figure, because your main character actually had a daughter who dies at the very beginning.
So not only does she have the antidote, or I'm assuming they need to save her because they can take maybe her blood or something within her that can create some kind of
She could potentially be the cure to the virus.
Yeah. So you're protecting her for that reason, and then also developing a rapport with the girl because you done lost your daughter. So there's a human element involved right there. Sounds, I definitely dig that. I dig the chaos in that, but at the same time, I need to check that out. What's it on?
Can't tell you right now.
The Last of Us, I'll check it out. I'll look into it.
But yeah, look it up. You'll find it. It's still out there. But in any case, you get to the place, you get to the hospital where your job was to bring this girl, and she goes in and they're going to operate on her or whatnot. And over the course of that, your character finds out that, in order to get what they need from her, they're going to kill her. And apparently the girl knew this all along, but you didn't.
The only way to get the antidote is going to kill her in the process.
Yes. So it's like that last part of the game, it's like, okay, fuck this. I'm going to go save that girl. And you're basically running through the hospital, killing literally everybody to save her.
So you're going to save her, but you're going to spend the rest of your life fending off zombies because you want to keep her alive instead of saving the human race.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to that. I mean, that's a hypothetical in itself.
Right.
What would you do in that
Would you
situation?
sacrifice your own kid for the greater good of humanity? Well, does that sound familiar? Open up John 3:16. No, religion. Let's stay away from it.
So in the game, it's like you can actually feel that intensity of, okay, screw this. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get this girl because we've had this relationship through. And when you're playing a game like that, it's like 10 to 15 hours of, being with her and, going through all the cutscenes.
So these
and
games
whatnot.
now, not only it tugs at your heart, it's not you just going out there and kicking ass. Now there's a human element involved, and these storylines are getting so they grip you so much that you're like shedding a tear that you don't want to show anybody. But that's intense. See, that's a good game developer right there that can just get you involved that way. And a newbie like me to get involved, to go buy a console just for that game. That the games have changed, I'm sure. So much.
And for that game, the game was actually more intense than the show, because you feel like you're doing this, that this is your job to go save the girl.
You're controlling the character and moving around and fighting zombies. And yeah, the only thing that would make it more real, speaking of real, the same guy that's a gamer at my job, he brought, and this is not just your regular Oculus, he bought this virtual reality. Mind you, he's got money now because he won that tournament. This thing, I don't know, it costs $2,000-$3,000. It was, I've never put one of these on, by the way. And it's not an Oculus. That thing's cheap compared to what this thing was. And I forgot the brand name. I looked it up online once, but I put this thing on and it blew me away. Virtual reality. Have you ever put one of those on?
I have the Oculus 2.
Okay, this thing right here was so ridiculous. You put it on, you can have, okay, he was telling me some of the capabilities. You can have virtual business meetings. As long as these other people had these things on, right? Not even the same room. These people are across the country. You're sitting in the same boardroom because you have all these virtual reality things on. Just the menu alone blew me away. You put it on and then this wall comes up and you can watch the internet on this thing, YouTube. And it's just, I'm sure you can do that with the Oculus too, and the games were freaking, yeah, dude, I felt like I had vertigo when I was done. I felt so dizzy and so disoriented because I was actually in another dimension when I put these things on, and it blew me away. I was like, take my money now. And that's what he does when he goes home. If he's not playing that game that he mastered, he's got the virtual reality goggles on and living a different life, basically. You could watch porn on these things and actually reach out. It is beyond ridiculous what I was feeling. I didn't watch porn, for those that were wondering. But yeah, technology in that sense blew me away. I was in awe, literally.
They're fun, but for me, virtual reality is almost more of a novelty than anything else. Like, mine kind of collects dust. I hop on every once in a while from time to time. There's actually a poker game on there that I like to play, And
You feel like you're at the table.
Oh yeah, it's really cool. I mean, you're at the table, and the way the controllers are set up, you have to do certain hand gestures to look at your hand, to play a hand, to
tap the table.
Tap the table, put the chips in. And plus, it's connected online, so everyone that you're playing with is basically doing the same thing. And, you can talk to them. The voice chat is really good. And it's a lot of fun. It's just such a pain in the ass to put that big, huge thing over your head.
See, this one, that's the difference between the Oculus and this thing. It was black. And it was every bit of this big. It went right over your eyes, and it had a strap on the backside of your head. Next time I see you, I'll have the name of it. But
if it's $3,000, I'm not buying it,
dude. Yeah, me neither. But
I'm perfectly happy with my $300 Oculus.
This thing was beyond ridiculous, and there was a life and some toys out there that I have no idea what I would be getting into. But back to the subject. Honestly, I'm thinking about purchasing a PS5 just to get into some games again, because I grew up on Metroid, Mega Man, Zelda. Sporting games back then were the shit, but now you look back at the I say 8-bit, maybe. Yeah. What was the original Nintendo? 8-bit, correct?
Yes.
And the competitiveness within the sports with my friends, that was fun. But when I was alone, I would play the adventure games. I was a big Zelda fan. I was a big Metroid fan. Mega Man. Those are probably the top 3. I guess you'd call them shooter games. I don't know. You were just running through stage to stage, shooting your way, trying to get whatever it is you need to do to complete the story.
Yeah, platformers.
Yes.
Okay, you know what? You just said PS5, but I think based on what you just said, I think the console for you might be the Nintendo Switch.
Really? See, I keep hearing that too.
I have a PS5 and a Nintendo Switch, and I play both of them almost equally. Mainly on PS5, I play Street Fighter, and occasionally I'll play poker. But I have the Nintendo Switch. You can get an online subscription, and you can play all of the old Nintendo and Super Nintendo games. And there's new ones out there that
so
are
that's
really
what
good
the
too.
Switch is. That's the name that's involved, because you can switch from.
Not at all.
No. School me, because like I said, I am a virgin when it comes to new consoles.
Okay, the big thing about the Nintendo Switch is that it is a console and a handheld. It's a game system. It's like a laptop. You can dock it to your TV and play it like a regular console. And the controllers, they can disconnect from the system and connect to like a wireless controller, and you can play it that way. Or you can disconnect it and basically
take it with you.
Yeah, you can take it with you. It's like a Game Boy almost. I'm using Game Boy versus PSP or any of those, or the DS or whatnot. But yeah, you can do both with the Nintendo Switch. It's actually now I do not undock it very often because it's a $300 system. I am not about to drop it or break it. I say that, yet I had a phone that was probably $1,000 and I dropped it straight into a hot tub just the other day.
Yeah, every phone now is.
And I wouldn't dare hold the Switch over the hot tub.
Yeah. You hold that closer to your heart than your phone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Man, I'm very interested, for a number of reasons.
I mean, you can come over and check mine out. There are games on there like, did you ever play the old Super Mario Brothers?
The original?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That was the staple. That was the first. I remember Super Mario Brothers being a sit down arcade game at the bowling alley. You'd sit down about this high as this table and play. It wasn't a stand-up game. But
I remember it.
Yeah, when it came out on
versus Super Mario Brothers.
Yes. And then when Nintendo came out, that was the game that came with the console. That was the game to play.
Yeah, and the Nintendo version was actually a lot easier than the arcade version, because the arcade version, just like every arcade game, was designed to eat your quarters.
Yeah, it was supposed to be tough.
Yeah.
Instead of throwing the controller down, you'd reach into your pocket and get another fucking quarter. Genius, by the way, to keep you hooked. But no, yeah, Super Mario Brothers, the original one. I remember the second one. Is that when you were pulling vegetables and shit up out of the ground?
Super Mario Brothers 2.
That was the second one, okay.
Yes.
I remember that one. Beyond that, I think is when I start getting introduced to PlayStation, or maybe Sega Genesis. Of course.
Oh, then you missed the best two of that era then. Super Mario Brothers 3 and Super Mario World on the Super NES.
I probably have played both of those. I just can't remember them like I can the other two. Then Genesis came out, and I thought it was the shit because it was new. I guess Sonic was the game that came with that. Sonic was okay. I mean, it wasn't Super Mario Brothers. It wasn't the original. After the Genesis, I don't know if I ever had a Super Nintendo. I can't remember. I do remember having a PlayStation, the original one. I do remember having the original Xbox. After that, I never got a PS2, 3, 4, 5. Didn't have anything past the original Xbox.
So you never owned a good console. That's what you're saying.
Probably, yes. By that time, I was married at a very early age. Not recommended. And life ensues. So I didn't keep the same passion. I wish that I did, because there's a lot of games out that just look too cool not to be a part of. EA Sports College Football 2025 being one of them. But yeah, man, I'm interested. I really need to get my feet wet a little bit, and I'll probably be at your house more often than not to test drive some of these things. The Switch does sound really interesting because my wife does like the old school games as well.
Yeah, you'll definitely want to check out the Switch, because even games like Super Mario Brothers, and this is a quick opinion of mine, is that nowadays, the early PlayStation, Sega Saturn, when they first started going into the 3D polygon graphics, those games did not age well at all. I feel like if I go back and play the 3D PlayStation, 3D Saturn games, I would not get through 10 minutes of it just because the graphics are just so horrible. But if you go back further, when we were still in the 2D era, the Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis games, I can play those all day.
Yeah.
Just because sprite-based graphics are timeless and the 3D polygon stuff, I mean, they're great now, of course, but in those days, I mean, they were shit.
Well, the
Look at
graphics weren't
Virtua
the number
Fighter.
one thing, basically, for you back then. It was more of...
Well, back then, we considered that state-of-the-art graphics just because it was 3D.
Yeah.
But, you know, now that we can actually do really good 3D graphics, I mean, those are just crap now. And the 2D stuff, to me, aged way better. What I wanted to say about Super Mario Brothers is that they did continue that series, and the games have actually gotten a lot better. They actually made a new Super Mario Brothers game last year, Super Mario Brothers Wonder. And that game's actually a lot of fun. I still haven't finished it 100% yet. I mean, I've already beat Bowser and now and all of that. But in order to complete the game, there's still a few more levels that I still haven't been able to finish. But yeah, the advances in it, the advances in the graphics, the advances in the gameplay, the online play. Because back then in the older Mario games, you basically took turns playing. But now you both play at the same time.
So it's interactive between the two people.
Yeah, you can both play at the same time. You're both going through the levels together.
Nothing sucked more than dying and then having to sit there and watch Luigi, the green guy, you know, your best friend, going through the whole game, and you're sitting there for 20 minutes going, geez, this sucks. Yeah. I think another game that I remember playing a lot, of course, was Street Fighter. And when Mortal Kombat came out, I thought that was the coolest thing because you could actually kill people with a fatality, which made you feel far superior than your opponent because you're ripping skull and spine out of the body. But Street Fighter was huge. And then when I got older, I think the last game that I really got into, this is when I was an adult, and it wasn't a game console. It was a game. An arcade, I don't even know if you call this an arcade game. Golden Tee, the golf game with that little hellish roller ball that I think I've jammed about 7 fingers on before. When I worked at Miller, I delivered beer for a living for a long time. We spent many of hours playing Golden Tee. And I'm not even the biggest golf fan, but it was pretty badass. Other than that, man, and we're talking 20 years ago. So it's been quite a while since I've actually owned one in my home. Didn't lose the passion for it, like I said, but I'm seriously thinking of making that investment again. But until that time happens, I'm going to test drive the shit out of some of your consoles.